endometriosis. Traumatizing, like these women are in such pain and that's not normal. Hello everyone, happy Monday, welcome back to my channel. This week we're going to be talking about something called endometriosis. Now this is a funny one because it's something that I have known about. It's been in my conscious for the last kind of like I suppose year or two or three before that, but I feel like a lot of people don't have a clue and have never heard about it, so I'd be interested to see, like, do people know about this or what is the level of knowledge? But I'm going to do a video today just talking through what it is, what are some of the side effects, some of the treatments to try and manage it, and then why I'm interested in it as a feminist issue and why I'm talking about it on this channel, and then just some bits of advice on maybe what to do if you think you have it or trying to get it diagnosed or just different things like that. Obviously, major thing to point out is that I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert, I actually don't even have endometriosis, so that's very important to say, I think. I'm obviously a woman and I have a uterus and I suffer from like PMS and bad periods and stuff, but that is absolutely nothing compared to endometriosis. So I am talking about this from a purely objective point of view and acknowledging that I will never know what it's like. Well, hopefully I'll never know what it's like to have endometriosis, but I'm just very passionate about this as a women's issue, and so here we are. Also, apologies if I get something wrong, do let me know. I'll check myself, I'll be like, ooh, that's all wrong, but hopefully everything in this is pretty accurate, and obviously if not, let me know. So we're gonna get right into it and just gonna be, yeah, super basic, what is it? So basically, my understanding of endometriosis is that, you know, like every month we get a period, the uterus has a lining, the lining builds up every month, and then basically we get our period and the lining comes away. So that's the endometrium, is the lining. So it's basically an endometrium-like substance, builds up every month, but instead of being on the inside of your uterus, it's outside your uterus. So this could be things like on your fallopian tubes or your ovaries, and that's obviously just not the way it's meant to work at all. So that's just kind of traumatizing in and of itself. And because it's like, say every month you're on your period, this happens every month, builds up, breaks down. But because it's not inside your uterus, where does it go? Like it has no route out, it doesn't go anywhere. So basically it becomes trapped inside you, around all your organs. It can then cause cysts on things like your ovaries, like just awful, to be honest. It can then basically just kind of like irritate all the different organs around your reproductive bits, gets irritated, adhesions form, like scar tissue, and then basically your organs can start to stick together if there's enough of it. And it's just very bad. So that's basically in a gist. Again, correct me if any of that is wrong or if people have any more to add to that, but that's basically the gist of what it is. One thing that I saw that I thought was interesting, and this is from the Mayo Clinic, which is like an amazing, like world-renowned medical facility in the States, and it basically was like the severity of your endometriosis, it might be really, really bad, but your pain is okay, or the severity of your condition is actually not that bad on the scale of like 0 to really, really bad, but your pain could be horrendous. And I think that's important to say that like there might not be a correlation between necessarily how bad your condition is and the pain you're experiencing. I feel like sometimes, and we'll get to this later on, that like a lot of times people might say like, oh, but your condition isn't that bad, therefore your pain can't be that bad. And so I think that's important to mention that like there may not actually be a correlation there at all. So I think that's something good, interesting to point out. In terms of causes, I'm not going to go fully into it because there is no definite cause. There are a couple theories, but again, nothing proven. One thing that I do think is important to mention is that it is potentially hereditary, that there could be a genetic factor to it. So there's been a lot of studies done where like the grandmother had it, the mother had it, and the daughter has it kind of thing. So it might be worth looking into your family history of menstrual, reproductive kind of conditions and seeing if something is there, and it might help you maybe get diagnosed faster if you think you have it or something like that. So I thought that was important to mention. Now in terms of like the effects that it has and like the effect that it has on your life, for me, like I get my period and I get like PMS before that. I pretty much just get the really like bad symptoms around my period, and then the few days leading up to it, the days of my period, and then it's done. So that's maybe, like my actual period is maybe like 3 days of like cramping, and then before that it might be like just kind of like my boobs are sore and stuff like that, but like I manage it with painkillers, it's fine. I think it's important to mention with endometriosis that you could be experiencing things like not just when you get your period, like it could be all month, it could be at random parts of the month. And so I think that's important to note. People might disregard your symptoms because, oh, it's like you're not on your period, and it's like, oh, okay, I can experience it any time of the month, huh? Or you might disregard your symptoms because you think, well, this can't be related to that now because I'm nowhere near getting my period. So like definitely, just if you're any bit unsure, just be keeping a note of of all these things. So many side effects. I have them all written out here, like I'm just gonna call them out. So the main obvious one is like your actual periods are just horrendous. So this is in terms of the actual amount of blood coming out. Like some people have heavy periods, some people have lighter periods, grand. But like when you have endometriosis, you could literally be bleeding non-stop. Like it literally might just like flow, like keep flowing. And like you hear stories about women that it feels like they're peeing because that's how easily it's and how much of it is coming out. So like awful. You know, have people that try to wear tampons, and like at the same time, like a tampon, a pad, like a couple of pairs of underwear. If they're sleeping, they have to like get up in the middle of the night multiple times to try and change it because it's like the pad it's just not enough. You know, having several layers of protective covers on their mattresses, like it's just horrific. And then of course the actual pain on top of that. So again, like I know what like bad cramps are, but from what I've heard, it's absolutely nothing compared to if you have endometriosis and you get cramps. So awful. I mean, it's a hard one to explain to people who don't know what cramps feel like. It's just awful. It's awful. And I can't even imagine what it would be like having cramps when you have endometriosis. Things like pain in your back, sometimes passing out from the pain, like genuinely, like you hear stories about that. It's very common. Infertility is a really, really big one. Sometimes men have to have a hysterectomy because the pain is so bad. Again, not even curative. And obviously then you can't get pregnant. Or even if you don't have that, you might just have problems with infertility because it's just, there's so much going on down there. It's just not a good environment for things to be going on. Pain during sex is a big one reported, which is obviously awful if you like have a partner or just in general. Like that's just such a hard thing to have to deal with. Sex should be enjoyable and fun and a thing you do, you know, with your partner that you love or whatever, and it's painful. And it's just like, and again, I think that's a really interesting one to point out, is because like so often, even in general across the board, women are told that women are indirectly that sex should be painful, or that like painful sex is normal. And it's such a common thing that like women just like think, oh yeah, well like of course it's meant to hurt. It's like no. Sex should not hurt. If it's hurting, something is wrong. You may not have endometriosis, but it's not. It's like painful sex is not normal. Everybody, just PSA. Pain going to the toilet, like that's just again awful. Like you need to go to the toilet several times a day. Not nice to be in pain all those times. Fatigue is a really, really big one. And I think like fatigue is a funny one because I think people who don't experience it, and again, I don't really think I've ever experienced fatigue. I think maybe you'd know maybe. I think people just think like, oh, you're a bit sleepy or you're a bit tired. It's not that. It's just like you just have no energy and no will to do anything. Like it's not just feeling, oh, I'm a bit sleepy, I'll have a coffee. Like you can't do stuff like that. You just have no energy. Like, so I think that's just important to say again. Things like blood in your urine, which again, just not normal at all. Diarrhea, constipation, and again, like these things I feel like are kind of worse across the board for a lot of people during your period, but obviously if you have endometriosis, just like so much worse. There's signs that things are just not working as they should down there, just in that area. And so yeah, again, pay attention to these things. Bloating is a huge one. Like again, I experience a bit of bloating around my period. A lot of people do, but this is like on another level. Like you see like before and after pictures, and it could be like you know, the morning you're fine, and then like on that same day you literally could look pregnant. Like that's literally how people describe it. They're like I look like I'm pregnant. That's how bad the bloating is, and like that is just so uncomfortable and painful. You know, bloating can be painful. Your clothes don't fit. You just feel awful. Like, oh, like bloating I think is a really underestimated symptom of all this kind of stuff. Nausea, migraine, horrific. Weight gain. Some other things I thought were fungal infections, or maybe you're just kind of like increased susceptibility to fungal infections, which I think is very interesting. And then things like insomnia, and something else I thought was cardiac arrhythmia, which is basically like when your heartbeat just like isn't normal, either it's like beating too fast or beating too slow. So again, just so many symptoms, and it's like one of those things that is just really hard to diagnose because there can just be so much that goes on with it that they think it could be like other things, but we'll get to that in a second. They say that the average time to get diagnosed from this is 9 years. And like you hear stories of women that it's taken them 30 years or 40 years to get diagnosed. So that's really, really bad. So like, it's so hard to even get to that point. Even once you get a diagnosis, there is no cure. There is no definitive cure. Again, I don't have it, so I can't, you know, like imagine what this must be like, but it's like, can you even be that happy once you get a diagnosis? Because it's like, well, there is no definitive cure, so what am I meant to do? But there are treatments, different kinds, and it's just like, it's kind of like with every women's issue or like reproductive health issue, it's just, it seems to be trial and error. And like it's kind of like the same, like if you're going on the pill or if you're getting like contraceptive options, it's all just seems to be like trial and error. It's like I don't want to have to do something that's going to make me depressed for 3 months and then come off again and try something again. Like it's just, that just kind of really annoys me, but I guess that's where we're at right now. So a couple of the things that are known treatments for endometriosis are obviously first just like medication, things like painkillers. Obviously some people might be able to manage it just through the painkillers and hope for the best. Obviously a more extreme version is surgery. You know, that could be removal of the uterus, it could be removal of the ovaries, it could be removal of cysts from the ovaries or removal of lining on the different reproductive organs. And then even if you get surgery, that could lead to further complications like excessive bleeding or infections. So it's just like, again, is that the best option? But it's completely different for everyone. Like it just depends on what is going on with you. Then things like hormone therapy. So that's things like if you were, you know, if you want to manage your periods, you might go on like the pill or something like that. So kind of similarly, like you go on the pill, get a coil, get like an implant, use a patch, different things like that. And again, that will depend on how severe or whatever your condition is. So those are just a few of the kind of treatments. Again, just like, you know, once you get a diagnosis, it's just kind of, I guess, trial and error to see what helps you and what is the best for you. So on to why I am talking about this as a feminist issue. I am just so passionate about, obviously, every women's issue, but I just think, and it's a well-known thing that like women's health is just not funded, it's not researched, and it's just no coincidence that it literally on average takes like 9 years to get diagnosed. Like there are just so many women going through absolute hell to even get a diagnosis, let alone then being treated or whatever, like to even get to that point. And what bothers me so much about endometriosis that you hear like countless, like the majority of the stories I hear about endometriosis are things like going to your doctor, not being believed because women are fundamentally untrustworthy, your pain not being believed because you're being dramatic and you're overdrawing it and you're overblowing it. And again, it's this, that they've done studies on this, that like women will go into hospital and women receive less painkillers than men because their pain just isn't taken seriously. And there's studies done, like this isn't just me like talking out my ass. It's just this concept of that women are being dramatic and they're making stuff up and not being believed, and it's just that aspect of it just kills me. And it's like these women are in such pain, and it's like at this stage, like they say that endometriosis affects from 2% to 10% of the female population. Like this isn't actually that rare anymore. And so it's like, if a person like me can figure that out and can know that, it's like a doctor should know that. And I just think it's just insane. And that's just why I'm so passionate about it. It's like women need to be believed and taken seriously, and our health and our reproductive health issues need to be funded, need to be researched. And it's just, yeah, people, doctors, nurses, everyone need to be trained in this. Like they need to be trained in reproductive health like conditions. Like that's just like a basic. Like I think as well, on another note is that it's just like kind of similar to how like we're told that like sex it's normal to be painful, like we're also told that periods are meant to be painful and just put up with it, and that's so not okay. And again, I think it comes down to, a lot of it is to do with shame. Like obviously, as we all know from my video a few weeks ago on the Tampax ad where I got very emotional, like we are constantly told that it's, oh yeah, like, you know, this is just what periods are like, you have to put up with it. And so like, and it's that coupled with the shame of periods and the awkwardness, like people, like imagine having endometriosis and you're bleeding so much more than normal, like the amount of shame you are going to feel, and it stops people from talking about it and stop this conversation, which is just so wrong. It's not normal to have those really bad periods. Like it shouldn't be normal. And I think like if anyone is in pain, you need to sort that out. Like I have gotten prescription painkillers. There have been 1 or 2 times where I'm like, God, maybe my pain isn't normal. Maybe it is, and maybe I'm just, you know, being dramatic. But there were times that I'm like, God, maybe, like, am I one of those people that I talk with that is just putting up with this and not, you know, making a big deal out of it? I don't know. But, you know, I got prescription painkillers. If I take them responsibly and take them regularly, they work. And so I kept my blessings. I kept myself very lucky. But just bottom line, painful periods are not normal. Like if you, I think a really good thing that I saw is like, if you need to like miss an event or like just if you are planning to go to something and you're like, I have to stay home because I'm in so much pain or I'm bleeding too much, then that's not normal. Like you need to get that checked out. And I think that was a really good way of putting it. And that's kind of really just kind of a good benchmark, like thinking, okay, have I had to miss or have I stayed home from anything that I needed to go to because of this? If yes, like consider that you might have this. I think another big like contributing factor to like it taking so long to get diagnosed is obviously again the lack of specialists in Ireland, and you hear a lot of stories about women having to travel. Shockingly, we've never heard that before. Women have to travel to the UK or further beyond, and like as we all know from repeal, just the amount of repercussions that has in terms of like taking time off work to go do that, taking time away from your kids, like you might not have any childminder, the money it costs if you need to go to the UK and have a surgery, like flying right after having a surgery, obviously not recommended. And like we just know that that is so bad. And it's just like, why do women constantly have to leave this country to go access healthcare elsewhere? And like one thing I just thought of when I was like, you know, making up my notes for the video is like, I've never heard of men having to travel to access healthcare. Like I've never heard that. I'm open to being corrected if there are things that men struggle with in Ireland that, you know, there are not specialists for. I'm open to hearing that, but I've never heard that. And I think it's really interesting that there are so many cases of women having to travel because their conditions just are not known about in here. And it's just like, why is that? Like it just doesn't seem very coincidental to me. And like as kind of previously mentioned, because there are so many symptoms, it can kind of be confused a lot of the time with like irritable bowel syndrome or pelvic inflammatory disease or ovarian cysts. Like they might not think it's full-on endometriosis, like, oh, we'll just get rid of the cyst and then that's fine kind of thing. And so obviously that all takes longer, but again, it's just like you need specialists to know that this is happening. And again, I just think shame is such a huge, huge part of it. Like if we were just more open as a society talking about periods and reproductive health, then I don't think this would be as bad as it is. Like we need to just get rid of a lot of that shame. Each step and done, obviously, but I think that's just a big, big factor that needs to be discussed more maybe when having this conversation. Okay, so what to do if you like think you have it or if you're just trying to figure out, like obviously I think the first one is just keep a log of your symptoms all the time. And I think like just important to that, like again, not just around the time of your period, like any symptoms that you experience at any time of the month, take a log. Like who knows, like who knows? And like it's like when you then, if you then decide, okay, I need to go to a doctor, which you should if you have any doubts, like you have a list of these symptoms, this will help the doctor so much more in trying to get you a diagnosis. So just be armed. And maybe like, you know, I have even found tracking my period has just been so helpful for like just so many things. So like track this for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then maybe go see a GP or like, you know, go see a GP first, whatever, and then they might give you some better advice. And just, yeah, just keep it a log, and then just go to a doctor. If you're in doubt, go to a doctor. Severe pain is just not normal, like go see a doctor. And important to mention as well, it's like really important, if you feel like your doctor isn't listening to you, go somewhere else. Just go somewhere else. And like I feel like women know, I feel like everyone, I feel like we all, you know, even if you're not the medical professional, I feel like we can always kind of be told like, oh well sure, I don't really know anything now and this is the doctor now and they know best, and we kind of like, but it's like you have that nagging feeling that like you're not being taken seriously or you're not being listened to. If you feel that way, go somewhere else. It's perfectly normal to get a second opinion. Go somewhere else. Try and find a specialist. I know it can be tough and it's like waiting times, get an appointment, blah blah blah. But like just, yeah, be your own advocate and just don't stop going until you have answers. Like whether it is endometriosis or not, like get an answer. Either way. I think really cool as well is just like there's loads of support groups. Like for in Ireland, there's an Endometriosis Ireland Facebook group, and like I've seen it, like there's loads of like really good posts in there. It's just like a community of people being like, oh, I experienced this, did you experience this? And everyone's like, oh my god, yeah, I experienced that. And it's just like validation, and just like, it's like, yeah, I'm not going crazy. Like would recommend joining those if you have it or if you think you have it or whatever, just to get a sense of, okay, what are other people feeling? Maybe I can relate to some of this, and maybe if so, maybe I have endometriosis. Like just, yeah, support groups, great. So that is basically a very just basic video on the facts, on the basics. There is like just so much more to discuss because this is such a complicated issue. it shouldn't be, but apparently it is. So that is just everything that I said I'd include for this week. Please look at some of the things I've linked below. If you are thinking maybe you have this or you want to learn more, comment if you have any thoughts, or if you've left anything out that you think is really important, or if I've got anything wrong, do let me know. And yeah, this is something that I'm just very passionate about, and we all need to be talking more about. Story of my life, but yeah, this is just adding to the list. So yeah, like, let me know if you found this interesting, if you learned something, if you didn't, if you already knew this already or whatever, do let me know. Please subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos like this, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in next week's video. Bye!